Hey, Kyle.
Hey, how are you?
I'm sad.
You what?
What?
You what?
I'm sad.
You're
Because of this
sad.
meeting. Just go.
I know.
Anyway. What am I gonna do? I know there's like something I have to do. Oh yeah, okay, thanks. Not you.
It's okay.
I didn't get out of it after all.
Shit, John. I thought you were bringing up whiskey.
No, there's the state revenue sharing, the PILT resolution on there, so any question comes up.
Damn. All right, John.
That's all right. I'll get my stuff downstairs, go get it in a minute.
How's the audit coming?
That's been going pretty good. The harbor's gone really well there. There's just some, they're moving some stuff around, that, the things that were just expense are capitalizing and,
Right.
but,
Which we knew was gonna happen, so.
yeah, but, they didn't, there's no flags that are popping up anywhere. There's nothing that they're saying anything about.
That's good. I wouldn't think it would be, so, but.
Well, that's, what's really hard, and it's like, your Rose has got a great handle on it. I mean, she's just doing a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
And so which is really kind of unfair to her, because she does all this work, and then they see it on this end, I just put in summary entries.
Yeah.
And,
That's okay, I mean, but, I definitely give her the praise where I can, and,
oh yeah, but it's just, at the harbor, there's been so much activity and so much overlapping activity.
yeah,
I mean, it's just like a bowl of spaghetti sometimes, there's so many different things that are going on.
yeah,
And then trying to tie it in with all of this and everything else, and now we're throwing the long dock on top of that.
I know.
And,
Yeah, we're not, I didn't start on the budget for that shit. I have nowhere to,
well, what do you base it on? I mean, there's no historical data to work with.
I know. And we got people sitting up there that going, well, it's not gonna take that much management. Bullshit. I have no idea.
When you get, 3 different companies coming in at one time, and all of them sit there and say, well, I was here last year, this, they're gonna be claiming dock space and.
I know. Well, and RC took me down there today, and this is all the area I have. Yes, RC, but you still have a lot of area here, you know? And it's,
I think that's what, I think the railroad just wanted to keep it, I think the railroad got tired of dealing with it.
well, I do too, I do too.
And
And I think what's gonna happen is, eventually, there'll be a time when we're gonna have to say, okay, in the summertime, we need a full-time person.
oh, you do, I mean, in the summer especially, once fishing starts, and you damn near need two people so you can take a run around the clock.
Right. Yeah,
And of course, you'll get, all kind of resistance on that one.
oh, yeah, oh, yeah,
But I mean, at the same time, if the dock is funding itself, which it should,
right, right. I mean, you know, 3.5 cents a pound, and if they're correct in what they're saying, you know, at 100 million pounds worth of fish, at 3.5 cents a pound, you know, that's quite a bit of funds.
and I can see 100 million pounds coming across those docks.
Yeah,
And, because I know with fish, because they were bringing in 100 million, and that was just one company, the bulk of it came from right here.
right.
And
Yeah,
now I know that fishing has kind of, died off a little bit, but
yeah, but I think, we'll see, but I mean, that's still, what, 100 million, that's still 350.
But even at that, for this deal went through so late, they said, okay, well, effective January 1st,
I know, I agree,
because that would have tied into our budget with everything else, and
yeah,
I just go curious what the driving force is for the railroad to lose such interest in it so quick.
so.
And 10 years is quick,
Yeah,
in the
sure.
railroad terms.
Yep, absolutely, yeah, I know that there's probably a lot of maintenance and stuff that's gonna have to be done.
And they're not gonna share any maintenance record with us,
Oh, no.
not that they've done that much maintenance to it, but,
Right.
they know what the true costs are, they're not gonna share them.
No, well, even the fact of, you know, it's like, Annie and I were trying to get, Paul Farnsworth to tell us, well, what do you charge? Well, I can't share that with you. So all they did was give us a scale of what they have, which is fine. At least I can go by this and see what, you know, what we have.
Yeah, I can probably get some of this stuff from, I guess, Inland Fish, because they're one of the big contenders here. And, I mean, I used to work there, so I've got some, so it's that contact, maybe I can get a little bit of information.
That'd be great.
I'll see what I can.
But, you know, if I can, because right now, I mean, security fees, well, that's, you know, that can be easily done, but when it comes to the wharfage, okay, you know, dock use fee for vehicles, I know we're probably talking a boat, well.
Well, see, they also, they bring out booms and every damn thing else out there.
Exactly, there's all kind of crap on there.
Oh, yeah, the docks, you can probably move around out there between all the totes and the loading ramps
I
and the
know.
forklifts and, then you got a dozen or more, personal vehicles parked there all the time.
Yeah, and I'm going, you know, and right now, they're getting by with it, but pretty quick, there's only supposed to be one vehicle per section out there. So there's supposed to be one for RC, one for inland, and one for, Whittier Seafood. There was only supposed to be 3 vehicles on that dock. And now, right now, there was 7 now on the
Oh, yeah, okay.
Whittier Seafood
So like I
side.
said, I know that, because, well, on the tender company, I'd come down here on the weekend sometime, take a meet the boat.
Yeah,
I'd be out there, and hell, I'd be struggling for a place to park.
I know,
And then you have trucks that are backing in, pulling out, you got the ramps, you got the
Yeah.
totes, you got the forklift running around.
yeah.
And I mean, there's just a lot of equipment out there at any one given time. And then it's just water everywhere.
Yeah. You know, you got, and right now, they've got 10,000 totes out there that don't need to be there.
Let me go grab my book, go to my office, I'll be back up.
All right.
safety, public works, finance.
Yeah,
You know, like open a window.
I know. Where's the air conditioning unit? Oh, actually, we can turn the fans off.
What are you trying to mark?
Right. You should be able to turn them on right here.
If they work.
Oh, yeah.
How's that?
Better. I think.
That's on low, that should be good. Amy, where's that day okay?
That we okay.
We're like a month old.
Well, not gold, okay.
No, absolutely not. Hey, Gregson. Where have I seen you?
I don't know.
You're gonna have to stand up and introduce yourself and be like, yeah, my name's Greg Russell. I came from.
Let's see,
My
where was
name
I at?
is Greg, 2 G's, 1 on each end. 2 S's, 2 L's.
2 S's and 2 L's.
I'm here because I got bored at retirement.
Oh, no one one's here.
This is gonna be the day they're gonna say, let's go downstairs.
Yeah.
Let's set it up for the garage.
Yeah.
Kyle, you want? I
Jack
have.
Daniels?
Yeah.
That looks like Jill Daniels. When will that camera go live?
I have no idea.
When does the camera go live? When do you turn it on?
It's already live.
Yeah.
Oh, great. No, Katie's going to send the thing out 7 o'clock. But it's well, if you're not saying anything tonight, I can't figure out.
Sure.
Yeah, Russian. Yeah, the Russian main sound.
Let me tell you about a story in Watergate.
You were there?
I was. Were you? Do you even know what Watergate was?
Yeah, that hotel where Clinton did all the.
Nixon.
Oh, there it is. Oops.
Yeah.
This shirt feels weird now. I know why. Anyway, yeah, I know what that is. I learned it in history. Isn't it weird that I learned history about when you guys were alive?
Isn't it though? Yeah, thank you for saying. Thank you for sharing that.
Well, that's guys.
I'm here all night.
When did you graduate high school?
2010.
Wow.
I'm a baby.
Yes. How cool is that?
You have grandkids older than me. I don't know who does.
Well, you didn't make very much coffee. What's the deal?
What's that?
You're
You didn't make
26.
very much coffee. What's the deal?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
How much?
Better call a plumber, it's not working.
Either.
Your first time here, right?
I gotta get cooks. Be right back. I still want to hear about the Watergate thing.
Sure.
Later.
Yeah, from an insider's perspective, right?
No.
What was the name, Detroit?
No, that was,
Sign a couple of checks, and I got a corner. There's a couple of them that are just,
all the president's men?
I don't know, just right, want to get them out of here. The audit, but all they're doing is anything else besides just cutting the occasional check.
We have the key to the second floor.
Huh?
We have the keys to the second floor.
Yeah, I just closed it.
Yeah, I need to go back down there real quick. You folded that first.
Kind of big stretched out really well.
Stretched out, rather than when you put your foot in it, put it down the road.
I do.
It scoots.
It does.
So
It's a little soft on the suspension,
yes.
but that's okay. The ducktail on the deck held it.
So, yeah, it's got a lot of weight in the back too.
Yeah.
Anyway, Gino got a hold of you this afternoon. Ordered some parts for the charger. So ended up they were needing brakes and the tie rod end on the passenger side was a little wobbly in those.
You know, that's your scribble bill for a month.
We'll take care of that. Yeah, that currently weighing,
Is that the cell?
It's similar to cell.
No, I mean, that, you know, the next check, that's a little more check. Is that your, yes, that's what I was
Oh,
calling.
yeah, he's born it out, so.
That doesn't include payroll.
Holy shit.
So,
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, we had
You see why I want to go away?
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, because it's
Yeah, he was
shitty.
on the other side of town, so I had to go through the tunnel.
Wow.
And so he
So if we pay payroll, we pay them $6,000 a year. We pay them.
hey man, this is my dinner. I haven't been home yet. And I've had a shitty day literally. So don't start with me.
You're in the village?
Yeah.
Still a shitty day right here?
Literally.
What I heard.
Oh, these are sick.
Derek, that's part of the rest.
Yes.
I heard that you have the same sign. And,
You've been lying to you.
yeah.
Man, I tell you, that mayor, you can't trust him.
Okay.
Gotta spread all these rumors.
Aren't you supposed to be on a boat someplace,
One here.
enjoying life? Sit in your house underneath, yeah.
Yeah, well, I almost thought of it.
You're retired longshoreman, they don't need the money anymore.
My name is Rich. Nice to meet you. I just
Well,
listened.
any problem?
That's okay.
Can you back up?
Hey! You don't know what he does to me all the time. Puts the spurs on and goes for a ride.
I almost came down. I just
Time
had here, you go
the
to
dirty steps off and laughs and gives her the walks off.
Supposed to be. Information.
No, I'm, and my personal focus here
Not
is
anymore.
gonna come up tonight with this personnel
It's
ordinance.
going down every year.
You shouldn't do anything.
They go pretty good so far. Nothing really jumping out to.
Yeah.
Over and over, you're going over the same thread.
Don't destroy it.
I can hear the excuses already, but.
We'll see.
I got,
How you doing?
I don't know.
You're gonna let us know?
About what? Oh, tonight? Oh, you'll hear it long before that.
Yeah, some days they would take one day, yeah. Another city pulled out all their own cards that everybody had. It's another thing that they want us to. So
Hi, Diane.
there's a new sort of your lives or something. That day. Why is it this? I'll do whatever.
Oh, yeah, really? Cool, that's good. I try.
Dumpster service.
So, the little
Yeah, well,
plaque,
yeah,
photo
Scott's
plaque,
started.
Ted Spencer, he's gonna come over and speak during.
Yeah.
Is he on the agenda?
No,
Doesn't want that, he can't wait.
Sounds
serious.
great.
He's come up more than once.
Thanks.
I don't wanna listen to his bullshit.
Can't you see I had a fucking day?
Mostly.
You're right. Come here. You want to see my day?
We can't speak because it's not on the agenda, neither can he.
Are you gonna show the picture?
It's on the agenda.
Yes.
Stay home.
I've got the plug if you don't have it.
So this is what we did this morning. Cutting with the contractor. That's my So everything on the second floor was full of overflow. Not to mention it was flowing down the ceiling drain. So that's from the other day. Oh, yeah, this is the building, so where the floor drains are in the restroom up there, the penetration through there. It was leaking down into his office, or what would have been his office, which is just the one time getting out of there. You must have went to church or something.
I have my sources.
You have your sources? Okay, so, and then, this one. Triple of it, and then got rid of that on, like, pushed the button, and then never come up or down.
Oh, no. We need to get a clock in this room.
It wasn't in hers, it his.
This was
Yeah.
pathetic.
So in there it's
Over a year.
2 bearing systems, one on each side.
Why don't you give me a hammer and a nail, I'll
And it runs on trucks or cars.
hang it on the wall.
It's bent out, it's bent out that lower side. It's,
All of them, Victor.
hitting the top of the piston.
Looks good.
So, and that's supposed to be straight on the front.
There's some light reading
Look
there.
how bent out, scoots bent out. So, see some crop is. But in their defense, I called them about 9:15 this morning. They were on service until 30. So that's pretty impressive. I called last night at 4 o'clock for a auto loader. So he was in this morning. Just for a tunnel, he left on.
You said you had one here, right? So, I'm pretty sure you know about this truck, the mic.
They were just playing that.
Yeah, you just press buttons. and then
So needless to say, they're going to be sanitizing everything tomorrow when they show up at
Sorry.
8:30.
I'm sorry.
Why is that? Diana was. Okay, who's the other one? Told Diana. No. Diana said she told him. And then there's 3 of them. Get her there too. Well, wait a second, you jumped on his side and beat it in the first.
I'm glad you got support.
I'm chopping between both. Suck it up, bud. Pop my head like it's.
Pretty good. That was no bigger than last year.
So here's that, so but they got a quorum. And this is.
So Kyle, which one of these drawings represents the work to be done?
Both of them. The one that we made a decision on. You remember? Remember when we were talking about here about moving this, right now it's up here. Moving it back down. The only difference is, this is the original, as it is right now. Dave Spencer was saying, what if we move it back down?
You're captain, right?
I am.
Dave.
And there's enough leeway here?
For a turn basin?
Yeah.
Yes, there's still there. It just doesn't give us the depth.
Okay, and so what else is being proposed here?
How's everything going?
The only additional was having, putting electricity and water.
So we're tweaking what's already done, there's no additional things going down here on the west end, in the ocean dock, in the city dock.
Roadblocks or obstacles or just the usual?
So this is utilities on existing fingers and moving a gangway. So,
Two steps forward, one step back.
and G in each.
Thank you. You're welcome.
So floats and fingers here, here, and here. Okay. So this is, the triangle's right here, right? So, and then X, Y, and Z floats are the ones over here. Z, W, X. So inside, where's Y?
Cynical fish still?
But these are already, these are already there. Okay? These are already there. And so replacing and. Okay. And so where are we at on this? Are we going to be discussing accepting this proposal or the components thereof? Okay, so this step is $5 million and the funding is TBD still.
Well, funding, part of the funding was given grant that we have coming in, 1.5.
Which grant was that?
It's the one that just, the government has signed off.
Okay, okay. So we still need to vote $3 million. Okay. Doesn't seem to be. They gotta give me one of them government jobs.
I think we're familiar with that.
I call to order Whittier City Council regular meeting Tuesday, May 22nd. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Peter Denmark.
Here.
Victor Shen.
Here.
Monty Irvin.
Here.
Dave Dixon.
Here.
Deborah Hicks. Here. Dave Pinkish. Dan Blair.
Here. I'd ask for a motion to excuse Dave Pinkish from this meeting.
So moved. All second.
Pause for a vote. Peter Denmark.
What are we voting on?
His excuse.
Yes.
Dave Dixon.
Yes.
Monty Irvin. Victor Shen.
Yes.
Deborah Hicks. Yes. Dan Blair.
Yes. Okay, let the record reflect administration present. We have Andy Reeves, city manager. Han May is our attorney tonight. Lindsay Erk is representing the school. John Janik, finance officer. And Kyle is our harbor master. And we have a new police chief.
Greg Russell. He's in charge.
Greg Russell.
Greg Russell, present. And Scott Corby, Public Works. Okay, I'd ask for a motion approving the minutes.
Move the agenda?
Oh, no, the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the April 17th, 2018 regular meeting minutes.
Oh, we grab them all.
Yeah. There's the April 17th, the,
Do them all at the same time?
yeah.
Then I'll amend that and say, I'll make a motion to approve April 17th, April 30th, and May 15th meeting minutes.
Second.
Calling for a vote, Dave Dixon.
Yes.
Monty Irvin.
Yes.
Deborah Hicks. Yes. Victor Shen.
Yes.
Peter Denmark.
Yes.
Dan Blair.
Yes.
Is that how these, meetings are done every 90 days?
What?
3 months, every 90 days?
Okay, I ask for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Question. Under unfinished or old business, we have an item, the rail crossing. And my question is, how does something find its way to old business when it's never been new business? It hasn't been on the agenda for the last few months, and it's now under old business.
It's been going on for decades, Peter, right? I mean, I'd be happy to ask for a motion to amend, to move it to new business, but I've been hitting that pothole for 23 years. I don't care where it shows up. I do know that this is listed as a special meeting. This is actually our regular meeting. At the top here, might want to amend that. So I'd ask for a motion to move.
You don't have to move it, Dan, more of a rhetorical question. It just seemed a little arbitrary to me.
It was very definitely arbitrary. I thought it was unfinished. It was important business. I'll second.
So I have Victor making the motion, Dave Dixon, and then there was an amendment to change special to regular meeting. Okay, calling for a vote. Victor Shen,
Yes.
Dave Dixon,
Yes.
Deborah Hicks,
Yes.
Peter Denmark,
Yes.
Lance Arroyo,
Yes.
Dan Blair.
Yes. Okay, so as far as the mayor's report, last month, Dave Dickinson and I put together a city manager job description
Advertisement.
and it was hosted in the AML website, and I believe today it was posted on monster.com, and so far we have not gotten any takers. That's about it. She sure did some other things, but that's all I remember. Moving on to the manager's report.
The only thing I would really like to highlight is a hearty welcome to Greg Russell, who's serving as our interim director of public safety. We're very excited to have him on board. He is already doing spectacular work. So I think Greg will be sharing some information or report, but I just would like to say welcome aboard.
Okay. Do we have any questions for any of our directors? I have a question for Ame. Holly indicated that we would get management authority over the Dalanga May 15th or May 16th. Did that happen? We get, as well as I think at that time we get from that day forward, we get 100% of all revenue on the dock.
So the May 15th date, I think, was an earlier prediction based on when we were hoping to get the deal closed. We're still ironing out the final details in the conveyance documents, the transfer agreement, the quick claim deeds, the activity lease. We're really, really close. close, but until we have a closing and sign all the quitclaim deeds and all the accompanying documents, the city won't have ownership of the Long Dock until that date. So we're really obviously hoping to do that as soon as possible. And it's we're really, really close. We just have like 2 or 3 little issues to finalize on the ITV lease, and then we've got to pull all the documents together and schedule a closing date where the 2 signing parties just come together and sign all the documents and record them. So we hope to, it's hard to make a firm prediction on that, but it's our hope to do that really, really soon.
I can speak a little bit to that. I communicated with Holly this morning, and it's looking like the meeting that on May is mentioning will occur June 11th, or the week of June 11th. Kyle will be leaving town next week. I'm leaving town the first week in June, and we're necessary, and our plans were made prior to all of this stretching out as long as it has. However, we are grateful for the additional time because it allows us to implement some protocols that have yet to ever be implemented. It's the first time that we're taking over a Deepwater port. So Kyle and I even today met and discussed ongoing preparations. So we're looking about the week of June 11th for control and transfer to occur.
So, up until June 11th or later, Railroad is still the administrator?
Yes. Railroad owns the dock until we sign off on the documents and record them.
Hope the fish show up late.
No, actually, we're not, it's not, the railroad is sharing management with us. We have, right now it's, as though House Bill, I think 320 has been put into effect. So the railroad has the north half of the dock. We have the south end of the dock. Whittier Seafood is using our end, and we're putting together a land use permit and such. So they don't have full control. Right now it's half and half. But we will have full control. We will retain the other half, the north half of the dock, the week of June 11th.
Yeah, fishing season didn't start till the 17th. I went down to the dock and talked to Bill down there momentarily, and they have all their totes on the south end of the dock, and there's a line going right down there. And I'm glad that you're cooperating with the railroad, and you guys are going to make this transition as smooth as possible, and it's not going to affect the fleet for any fishing. Because they're not interested in any of this crap. They just want to get the fish off.
Right, and that has been our priority all along, is to make it as seamless as possible for our processors and commercial fishermen. They don't need to be caught in the middle. So we're trying to work very closely with Paul Farnsworth and making sure that we are communicating clearly, and when issues crop up, that we step in right away. And if we have questions, Paul has been very amenable and helpful in sharing information with us. In fact, we're meeting tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. with him to continue the conversation.
And Paul's with who?
Paul's with the railroad.
Oh, yeah, great, yeah. Good job, thank you.
Lindsay, do you have a report for us?
I don't, unless somebody has any questions.
Okay. Moving on to the commission reports. Greg, do you have a?
We haven't. So we had our meeting in April. We're kind of in the summer now, so we don't have any scheduled meetings coming up until September. I think we're going to have some special meetings coming up once we can take over the Long Dock and those things are going. But basically, I was Andy invited me down for the meeting on the Long Dock with the railroad and the fishing companies to divvy up their spots on the Long Dock. I just kind of sat there and listened to that. I was also part of the BMI meeting we had with Dave Pincush and Kyle. I was part of that and kind of walked the docks with them, with the BMI guys. I think there's something coming up in new business about that, about kind of the final phase of it. It was good to chat with them and throw out ideas and see where they're at. So I just wanted, there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff in new business with Port Harbor. Just remember that we can do special meetings before you guys move forward with stuff, and we can always bring recommendations from our side as well. So just, don't act too quick, but I know some things do need to move fast. So, some things are moving quicker than others, but we're there. We can always have a special meeting and send our recommendations to you.
Thank you.
Great, I have a couple of questions. This is the last shot at reconfiguration, because once they replace the pilings, it's in there and built.
Correct.
And I was wondering, as a commission, have you guys discussed the congestion at April? And is that area of the harbor being utilized as best it can to be create revenue and also to accommodate basically the same? Instead of like having boats 6 deep out there, is that the best way to manage that?
We haven't had a specific conversation about that. We did talk at our last meeting about moving the walkway over the turning basin. I think that's the big part of what you guys are talking about tonight, and kind of making the turning basin smaller, not adding the fingers from the original thing, and then kind of keeping it straighter and stuff. And the Port and Harbor recommended at our last meeting, you won't see it because we haven't approved our minutes from that last one, but recommended actually moving that turning basin. It kind of jogs its way through. We recommended moving that back so it's a straight shot. But there's more to it too, I think. And I don't know, I haven't seen Kyle's, or I haven't seen BMI's quotes for the things, but it was a very good conversation that we had. We were walking the docks with them and engineers and stuff. So I was happy with it. A-float wasn't discussed a lot because there's the whole city dock issue. The city dock is going to need to be replaced sooner or later. There's the possibilities of moving it, angling it, trying to make that corner a little bit better. But that wasn't, that's not, we're not there yet. So there's still a reconfiguration of the harbor in this final phase.
And Greg, as this conversation filters through Ports and Harbor about that specific corner by the city dock, there's been a lot of conversation about whether we need or want a bigger travel lift at the same time. So I'm hoping that notion becomes a part of the conversation and should be integral to the thought.
Yeah, and definitely. I mean, we had a boat sink in the harbor yesterday. Some of these bigger boats, if they sink in the harbor, can travel lifts handle that? Can the city dock handle that? It's a conversation that that'll be part of that conversation as we move forward with it. So just keep us in the loop. We'll keep you in the loop, and hopefully we can all figure it out.
Thank you, Greg. Parks and Rec?
Yeah, we've done a few things over the last month or so. Had a winter recreation summit on May 12th with Alaska Mining Diving and Jason Stansel and Graham from the Forest Service. One of the things that came out of that was some of the work that needs to be done on the Horsetail Falls Trail. Alaska Mining Diving has helped us haul some of the lumber up that we can use to replace some of the step and run that's rotted out. Maybe do some other work with it up there. And we decided that for the snow machiners, we could get some of the alders cut back. It would allow more snow to hit the ground, and it would tear up, they would tear up the ground a lot less if they had more snow on the ground. So the guys from Alaska Mining and Diving actually got out there in the rain this last weekend and cut some alders back and did a bunch of work up there. But a lot of the discussion was just how we can create a shoulder season, how we can communicate better with user groups so that we could attract more people to come in and use Whittier for winter recreation. And that'll be an ongoing discussion. I think Scott kind of referred to this meeting as the pre-planning meeting for the pre-planning meeting. It really was just to kind of get our heads wrapped around the subject and figure out what we can do in the future. Victor and I just attended Alaska Trail Stewards training class this last weekend, and it was a really good class that helped us, I think, learn better how to bring in volunteer groups and how to keep them safe and how to communicate with them, and just gave us some good ideas on trail design to make trails more sustainable, you know, as we design them, as we cut them out. We got the master plan back for the park from CRW, and that needs to be confirmed. And I'm not even really sure what the next step is. So Annie, I think I'll be talking to you about that. I started this at the meeting, we have more time. We'll get together and do that. We have a volunteer day coming up on June 2nd, and that will be a local volunteer day so that we can work more down on Whittier Creek Trail. Victor, you said you've got a skid steer set aside for us to help us do that. We'll try and make the head of the trailhead a little more attractive. You know, we still have some things that we need to talk about, but we will be doing a bunch of work on Whittier Creek Trail on June 2nd, and then on June 16th, we plan on bringing, well, Alaska Trails will be here. We'll have some other volunteer groups come in, and we'll do some work on Horsetail Falls Trail. And hopefully that's where we can install some of that stuff. Weather dependent, and depending on how much snow there is still up there. We'll get a bunch of work done no matter what. That's it.
That sounds great. Okay. Any of these other committees want to add something, just let me know. Citizens' comments on agenda items not scheduled for public hearing. On the resolutions. Oh, all right. David.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the council through the mayor, I notice here on new business there are 3 items, number C, D, and F, and I would hope after the discussion that's gone on over the last several months that this first go to the Port and Harbor Commission for their recommendations and then before the city council. Some of this stuff appears fairly new to me, and I know Greg has done a lot of work, legwork on there, and I'm sure he will be reporting back to the commission and get some commission input so you all would have some input for your decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Madam Clerk, would you read the first resolution?
Resolution 09-2018, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Whittier, Alaska, adopting the rate of levy, date of equalization, and date when taxes become delinquent for 2018 tax roll.
I ask for a motion.
Move to adopt resolution 09-2018.
Second.
Any discussion?
Discussion? Hearing none.
Calling for a vote. Victor Shen,
Yes.
Peter Denmark,
Yes.
Dave Dixon,
Yes.
Monty Reagan,
Yes.
Deborah Hicks,
Yes.
and Dan Blair.
Yes. Can you read that next resolution?
Resolution 10-2018, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Whittier, Alaska, requesting fiscal year 2019 payment in lieu of taxes of HILT funding from the State of Alaska Department of Commerce, Community, and Economic Development.
I'd ask for a motion.
Move to adopt resolution 10-2018.
I'll second.
Discussion? Hearing none?
Calling for a vote.
Can I make a quick suggestion? The date is incorrect. May 22nd, 2016, that should be changed to 2018.
Thanks, Mayor. That's the only amendment I'm going to be calling for a vote. Victor Shen,
Yes.
Dave Dixon,
Yes.
Peter Denmark,
Yes.
Deborah Hicks,
Yes.
Monty Irving,
Yes.
and Dan Blair.
Yes. Madam Clerk, would you read the next resolution?
Resolution 11-2018, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Whittier, Alaska, accepting fiscal year 2019 community revenue sharing funds from the State of Alaska Department of Commerce, Community, and Economic Development.
Ask for a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 11, 2018.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none?
How much of a decrease has that been from the past decade, Mr. Mayor?
I don't remember what it was last year, money. Actually, it doesn't seem like it's decreased much.
Okay, yeah, I was just going to mention that an indicator of the economic times that we're in, the revenue sharing from the state. Who knows?
Well, I definitely anticipated this to completely disappear. There's been a lot of arm twisting by other communities. I mean, doesn't impact us as much as some of the communities, but some of these interior communities, this is the lifeblood of what keeps their doors open. So it's definitely been one that I've advocated for when I attended AML. I mean, yes, it's an important source of revenue for us, but it was, there are communities that aren't as blessed as we are. Call for the vote.
Calling for a vote. Dave Pinkish, or Dave Dixon,
Yes.
Monty Irving,
Yes.
Deborah Hicks,
Yes.
Peter Denmark,
Yes.
Victor Shen,
Yes.
and Dan Blair.
Yes. Madam Clerk, would you read the next resolution?
Resolution 12-2018, a resolution of the Whittier City Council authorizing the acting city manager to enter into a contract with Cruise Construction LLC to build Shotgun Cove Road Station 65 plus 00 to 114 plus 004, $2,562,590.
I'd ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution 12-2018.
Discussion?
What is the scope of the work?
Did you get a second?
Hemant, was that a second?
Oh, yeah, second.
Go ahead, Scott.
To answer Councilman Denmark's question is, we'll pick up where Cruz left off about 5 years ago, where the road's complete with the gravel surface. It'll complete the Pioneer Trail in a similar fashion, which is currently finished, all the way to the end of the design for this segment, or what is currently permitted and shovel ready.
Which is the construction staging area currently at the end of the road.
Correct, about another 300 yards farther beyond that.
And that's going to be graded for a road or a Pioneer Trail?
It's graded for a road. So basically what you see from the Buckner building all the way up past Lou Young Park, it'll be a similar format all the way to the end.
Okay, so we're adding about 300 yards, and what are we doing on the interim mileage on the Buckner building?
Nothing on the interim mileage. It'll be, they'll maintain the grading of that as construction traffic. The new construction will be to Western Federal Interstate Highway standards, and will be approximately 1.1 miles.
From where to where?
From where it left off. So when you drive out there, you'll notice the change into a Pioneer Road or a real bumpy road. At that point,
That's after Second Salmon Run, right?
Correct.
Okay, and then that turnout area is only a couple of hundred yards down the way.
No.
Okay, so where's this 1.1 miles of finished road?
Where it leaves off, where it steps in and gets narrow there off the high bank, 1.1 miles towards Trinity Point. So just past the gravel road.
But that only is 300 yards farther than we are right now.
No. You asked where the road ended from the gravel pit. It ends 300 yards past the gravel pit.
Okay, so you're calling the road finished 300 yards past an hour, and we're going to add 1.1 miles to that.
No, sir. I'm sorry, I'm confused.
Do we have a map? It would be handy.
There was a map that was rolled up here.
I can show you my computer real quick. Oh, we have a map. That's crazy. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Wall area for the entire project.
Like, we won't be getting any more distance, but we'll be upgrading the last 1.1 mile of the Pioneer Road.
I don't mean to be obtuse, but I don't get it.
So you know where the Second Salmon Run Bridge is?
I know exactly where it is, Dan.
Okay, so 1.1 miles before you get to that is all considered Pioneer Road.
Okay, so the Buckner building to first, second Salmon Run to second Salmon Run is Pioneer Road.
No, that,
Yeah. Okay, so we're not extending the road, we're improving the road from Second Salmon Run backwards, approximately Second Salmon Run backwards for 1.1 mile for $3 million.
2.56, correct.
Plus or minus $250,000.
Correct, for contingencies.
Thank you.
Can I make a comment, please? Sure. At the end of the last sentence here, total construction cost shall not exceed $2,820,000. I like that. I mean, there's a difference in price here, but at least there's an upper end, you know? And it said that's the upper end, you can't exceed that. Just as a matter of information to the council, I remember bringing up some of the cost of this building, Mark, when there was cost overruns, and made the mention that at the end of negotiations, there should always be a sentence that there should be a price not to exceed a certain amount. And then he told me, he said, well, in projects of this magnitude, that's generally not not ordinary. And I thought, that's crazy. I don't know how, I mean, I just don't understand how, like, there was like $1 million added on because of seeming lack of oversight or what, or wording of the contract. So, but I just want to tell you, I'm pleased to see this construction cost not to exceed written. And I don't know if Annie, you put that in there, or thank you. I don't know where you came up with that figure of $300,000, but I guess you figured that if they start going $300,000 over the cost of that project, ought to be put into it.
So, Council, I've performed a lot of work here for the City of Whittier on construction projects, heavy civil minded. It is pretty standard that you have a contingent sum or contingency plan of money for the unforeseen costs. So, if we hit needing to do some rock nails or something, or a change order, we don't have to come back to you and stop progress on the construction site. So our engineer recommended, WH Pacific recommended that the 10% contingency be allotted for this project. So
yeah, it was essentially baked into the project, correct?
It was baked into the project, yes, sir. So, and we have, knock on wood, the Shotgun Cove Road projects since I've got here in 2009 have been delivered on time and on budget. So I don't foresee any problems going forward here. It is slated to be completed by October 2019. This is the last of the Western Federal Lands funding grant in place. I've confirmed with John Janik that we have funds available to do this project. The slated funds for the Shotgun Corridor, we have $4.2 million available to us to complete construction.
Complete the road or this phase?
We can spend $4.2 million in the Shotgun Cove Corridor. So we have $4.2 million of funds available to be spent on the Shotgun Cove Corridor.
This year, or that's it?
In the next 3 years, when these grants sunset. So
Okay, and is there a sunset on the grant money if it's not spent?
Yes, there is. We're currently spending that with CRW. We'll spend the remaining funds with CRW in the development of the next segment from the end of this project to Trinity Point for design, permitting, environmental assessment, geotechnical evaluations, wetland mitigation. So we are trying to spend every dollar that is available.
So then at that point, we have no funding ideas to further the idea for another 3 years from the sort, from Western.
We currently have money from Western Federal Lands and 2 grants from the state for this project. We also have a $2 million grant, which is called the FLAP, which is also going to help us fund the design and permitting for the next segment.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Call for a vote.
Dickerson,
Yes.
Lon Searman,
Yes.
Dave Dixon,
Yes.
Peter Denmark,
Yes.
Deborah Hicks,
Yes.
and Dan Blair.
Yes.
Moving on to unfinished business, Alaska Railroad crossing. I asked for this to be put on the agenda, and it looks like it was, I didn't realize that the railroad and the administration were currently progressing with a plan, but I'd be interested in hearing about any of those plans that can be made public. I think last year Scott walked me through some ideas that were in the works regarding making the pedestrian crossing, the pedestrian component of the railroad crossing a little safer. Is there any plans to do anything that would last as far as the road component? There's been a lot of asphalt poured and rubbed away for a long time.
So about 5 years ago, Public Works, the railroad, Phillips, the cruise ship industry, everybody, we met up in homeowners lunch to discuss this issue, along with the state DOT, and a long list of people. So we all partnered and tried to come together with an idea and solutions. We've been working diligently against it. The wheels of government funding turns slow. We're in the final, the railroad is in the final stages of securing funds to upgrade the railroad crossing. Blake Adolphe, the railroad engineer, is the design and has been the lead on it, with DOT and the city of Whittier being subordinate and supportive of it. Blake didn't want to come here tonight because they don't have the signed paper from the state and the feds for funding. He'd rather come here and lay a set of plans out and say, we have funding, this is what we're going to build. With that being said, we are maintaining or keeping up, the city of Whittier as well as the railroad, keeping the holes filled. I've got more asphalt coming in, just got made today, in fact, to be picked up. The goal is to get this started this season and get it completed this season, if funding is there. So Blake will probably be here at the next council meeting to show you pictures of what is intended to be built. So,
thank you.
Sorry for the wishy-washy answer, but there's stuff in the works.
Peter?
Okay, and as this is coming up as old business is becoming currently relevant, we have some new people here, and I would like to remind everybody that the rail crossing in question is often defined by our friends at the railroad as crossing the tracks, when in fact that crossing is a mid-yard crossing. It's between the switches. And it's been a long-held contention, it's their problem. It's a rail yard, it's not a rail crossing. Please remember that. It's always been a stiffening point. The railroad doesn't like to hear it, and they're just waiting for somebody to forget, in my cynical opinion. It is a crossing of a rail yard. Is the tidbit that I offer. Thank you.
You're not gonna let them forget that, right, Scott? Right. Good. Add a concrete next to
To build a bridge.
Okay, moving on to new business. We have a review of ordinance 03-2017. Peter.
What's the point of the review? What are we trying to accomplish? Are you thinking about putting it back on the table as a first reading? We want to discuss its shortcomings, its longcomings?
I thought you had asked for this to be put on April's agenda, so.
No, I want to discuss the notion of policy. It was a request that I put on, but this ordinance is a prime example of the need for establishing personnel policies. It was less than a year ago, we had a workshop over this ordinance, open to city staff, and they came. And the upshot of that workshop was that this ordinance, as it reads, is vague and subjective and offers too much discretion to the city manager's chair. And that is why we wouldn't pass it at that point. And my point was, all this needs is an overlay of policy to fill those gaps. And it's good to go. One of the main points in this ordinance is a change in the grievance procedure, which needs to be done, and the sooner the better. I get it, but it needs a policy overlay. And if you remember the response to our last city manager to my statement about that, well, I certainly do. And to me, Mr. Mayor, the notion of development of policy is Management 101. Any organization of more than 12 people requires a specific set of policies to mandate behaviors, expectations across the board. That an organization the size of the City of Whittier is running without any extant policies, to me, is the essence of many of our problems. We are covering the same ground over and over and over again as the years go by here, and I've been on the council on and off long enough that I've come to take it personally. As many of the ills that we're feeling, I'm guilty, it's my fault. I've been sitting here for years and we're still doing the same, still chasing our tails. And going forward, I think the biggest priority for the City of Whittier is the establishment of these policies, not only to overlay this ordinance, but operational policies across the board for every department. And until we get there, we're going to keep making the same mistakes over and over again. So that's my speech. And how do you get home? So it's real easy to point out the problem. So what's the solution? We have tried for the years. We have rolled Title II over this table over and over again over the last 10 years to no significant change. What we need to do is we need to contract this out. There are organizations to do it. And yes, it costs money, but the lack of these policies are causing problems that are, well, significantly more expensive than doing this exercise would do in and of itself. But for any organization to be operating with a staff this size, especially without policies, is not doing its job.
So, in review of this ordinance, there would be essentially references to policy from this ordinance. I mean,
yes, and it's not only this ordinance where it applies. This is an across-the-board thing. This is not only personnel. Policy should be, there should be an administrative umbrella, policy umbrella over all departments, and then every department will have policy specifics to its own needs. Especially public safety has very specific needs, but they still need to be answerable to the same policy that all other city employees are at the same time. And policies are a fluid idea. Ordinances are a rigid idea. So ordinances should be maybe vague and more general, which many of ours are, and are also conflicting and too subjective sometimes. But the policy fills in those gaps. And every employee will know what is expected of them, and what are the policies and procedures. It's a big deal, and it's a lot of work, and we will never get it done internally. We've tried, and we can't even get through one title effectively.
I remember Mark saying that a template for what you're talking about would be $10,000. But
I think it's going to be closer to 50 or 60, Monty, and it's
yeah,
worth.
But that's what the template filled in. right? You know, would be,
Well, he told us a lot of things too, Monty.
Yeah.
So, but in my brief conversations, you know, we're talking well into 5 figures here to get this done. But if you look at the money that we have wasted in a number of arenas, insuring vehicles that are not even running anymore. I don't want to start the list here, but this would be the best $50,000 or $60,000 the city could ever spend. And the time was right 10 years ago, and the time is all the more right now. And so as we go forward, and all the stuff rolls over the council meeting, I'm coming right back to this every time, because guys, I've been sitting here long enough, and I am not going to support going forward with any idea until we have our administrative house in order and properly organized. It is not.
So this employee ordinance, you want it thrown out?
It has been languishing. I don't believe it was tabled. I think it was postponed indefinitely when it came up last summer. Our previous city manager saw no reason to have any policy overlay to it. And it's pretty obvious to me that it does. And I don't know and you might want to get the input of some of your department's heads as well, but the ordinance in itself is a bit of good work, but it's incomplete without overlaying policy.
So,
and if you want to find out why, just have the same workshop occur again.
Okay, but what I'm advocating, I believe you've told me, is that this ordinance, if we could bring in the policies, this ordinance doesn't miss the mark that much as far as the necessary component of the ordinance.
That is true.
I see on page 44, I'd like to recommend that we unstrike the prohibition of firearms. And then...
Are we bringing this ordinance up for review here?
That's what we're doing, review of it. And then ask for, I believe, to get a handle on the policy component, ask for input from our legal counsel as far as some examples of how that could be done for us.
And may I comment? Because this was a big deal when this came up before. Once again, an ordinance is rigid, policy is flexible. Personally, I think it's crazy not to prohibit firearms in the workplace. I know our previous city manager expressed his fear of assassination, but I think it's pretty long odds for any one of us here. And then where firearms are appropriate, it can be managed through the policy of the individual department, such as public safety, or if the harbor guys are going to go play in the woods and need a shotgun. I don't know. But my opinion is allowing firearms in the workplace is an open door to serious liability problem.
I was saying unstrike it. It's stricken right now.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. But
we're on the same page, sir.
May I make a recommendation that I completely agree with what Peter is saying, because I live with the realities of what he is expressing every day. Our policies and procedures, the ones that we have, seem to be insufficient, and we are lacking in many different arenas, policies and procedures at all. And I think that my department directors, I see them nodding. It's a very real and pressing concern that we do need to address. There is a difference. Peter has spoken with me extensively. He shared with me information, I think, between 50 and 60,000. We could get a template to overhaul our code in its entirety, I believe. Is that correct, Peter?
Yeah, and our legal team has mentioned the anomalies, subjectivities, and contradictions in our code. Let's cut down the whole tree. And anyway, I think without the rigid code being accurate, the fluid policies cannot be entirely effective.
So I have looked at Title II, and they're even having had, I believe, legal counsel. This happened prior to my arriving. There are still insufficiencies and issues that are not addressed in Title II, even yet. We could hold a workshop just to try and pass Title II. That would be very beneficial to even just give me the rules, if you will, on which to base the policies that we need to develop to address our staffing issues. I'm not sure if you're amenable to having a work session next month. I avail myself, my staff avails themselves to making this a priority. It needs to be a priority. So if you would be open to a work session, I can certainly come with information on the inadequacies of vaccine, and maybe we can have a discussion, and maybe we can present it at the next council meeting. And more than anything, I would like to stress that it's very important to bring staff into the discussion prior to trying to pass anything. If we're going to be met with success, these conversations need to be vetted with the people that they're going to impact. So if you guys say, yes, we want a workshop next month, my priority is going to be to meet with my team and say, hey, what works, what doesn't work, what are the gaps? And by the time we get to the workshop, then we'll have an informed product that we can hash out and discuss. That's my suggestion.
Yeah, and I agree. If the ordinance work across the board may make sense to do first, but it can always be tweaked after the fact. So I support the idea wholeheartedly, and it would be a positive first step. Thank you.
So maybe do a work session next month?
Work session before the regular meeting, or?
Sure, we can do. If that would be amenable to you guys, we could meet for an hour. I'm not sure how long work sessions usually are before. We could do 4 to 6 break for an hour, come back at 7 for the regular meeting, try and pass it. Or again, I'm just happy to be having this conversation. So whatever works for the group, we will make it happen from the administration side.
Going into summertime, evenings are better for me than 4, 5, 6 o'clock. I'll do my best. But you know, my work day is beginning to stretch into early evening now. So pick a date and I'll do my best. I'll find a way.
It's gonna take a couple hours.
Or we could do, if we could meet maybe on Monday prior to the council meeting on Tuesday, so we could meet later, maybe 7 to 9, or again, well,
Yeah, 6 o'clock on a Monday, whatever works for everybody.
so our June council meeting looks like it's the 19th, is the 3rd Tuesday. So maybe meeting Monday the 18th at 6 o'clock. Maybe we can send it. Okay, and I'll be ready to present at that point.
And if you need legal assistance in that work session, we can make sure that happens as well.
Moving on to employee work flow chart.
So my understanding from Aileen is that this was a request to be included last meeting. And I think it's just a continuation of the conversation we just had, is my understanding, unless I'm here.
Yep, pretty much. You know, our presumptions about necessary staffing levels correct. I mean, that's kind of question 1. And this chart goes to that.
Okay, so Don?
Your flow chart kind of indicates that the voters of Whittier elect the mayor.
I couldn't quite hear you.
Your flow chart kind of indicates that the voters of Whittier elect the mayor.
The mayor and council.
Yeah, but we don't elect the mayor.
No, we vote on
Right.
council.
You let the council then.
I understand that, but it looks in appearance of your flow chart that the voters elect the mayor and council. They don't. Just a technical.
A line could be added to represent the fact that the mayor is elected by the council.
The community does narrow it down to 7.
They do have a say.
Okay. Ready to move on from the flow chart? Bellingham Marine quote for harbor reconstruction, phase 3.
So first of all, we just got this quote finally this morning, and so what we'd asked for was when we met with Bellingham folks was to look at give us a final quote to date on what it would take to do the final phase of this. And one of the suggestions was Peter and Portsmouth Harbor Group had looked at how we wanted to do that. And so one of the things that was concerning to Dave Benkush and to others was how much revenue can we get out of this by just changing that walkway across between Charlie and Delta floats. And by moving it back, we gained 2 larger floats, permanent floats, or permanent slips. So anyway, that's why we asked him what it would take and what it would cost to do that change. So that's why the difference in it. The difference, of course, is about $100 and some thousand just for the move of that area. But we would gain approximately almost 4,000, probably about $5,000 a year just between those two annually to gain, for the 2 slips. So, to me, it didn't make a difference. I didn't care. But, I'm just presenting to you to see what it was going to cost us to do that. The other line item that was another change was, what would it cost to add electricity to the whiskey floats, which are the floats right underneath the harbor? Right now, that is it's just an open. There's no electricity, no water on that. So we asked for that to be presented as well. So what I'm trying to do is give you options of what what do you guys want? What do we want out of this? So, but here's the bottom line: what's it going to cost us to do all that? So there's no more changes. There's no more nothing. The one thing that we, to kind of give you an idea, we're going to take all in this last final phase, we're taking all of the old pilings out and then replace them as we go. So they're going to bring in a pile driver and stuff starting at the hotel and golf floats and move back towards the Alpha float. The questions on Alpha dock was what, are we still going to have that narrow path through there for boats to come in through the lane through there? Well, yes, for a while we are. But the way we have it designed is that there's going to be almost a curve there where we can actually utilize the Alpha float to the extent that we can. We're not taking anything away. We're also gaining a little bit of width in there to where it's going to be a little bit easier for people to swing through there and go through that fairway. And then comes the address of the city dock, which is another portion that we're gonna have to look at real quick, which is part of what you're talking about, Peter. So what we're working on, hopefully, we're working on a Tiger grant to come up with that final portion. It's not included in this at all. And that includes the lift. And I just had the inspection done on the lift, might as well give you that update as well. And our lift is in pretty bad shape. I just ordered $10,000 worth of parts for it, more. So
That's about an annual event, isn't it?
it seems to be, yeah, at least an annual, yeah.
What was the cost for electrifying a whiskey float?
Here, make me look here. Yeah. $173,000, yeah. And that's for both for electricity and for water as well.
Can you recover that cost, or are they gonna, I mean, mostly that's bow pickers that come in there, park through the boat and leave. Do they
Well, not necessarily. On Whiskey Float, now we've got U.S. Forest Service boats are on there. All three of theirs, as well as the SRT, which is the spill response boat, is there. So it's not just the bow pickers anymore. So we're trying to utilize that and get revenue out of it year round, as you know. So are we recovering it? God only knows. I have no idea at this point. I mean, can we, you know, but it's just, some of it's a convenience for our customers, and other is, you know, we're just gonna have to see.
Well, convenience for customers is great, they'll pay for it.
Well, they will be paying for part of it, but, you know, it's how much, I can't tell you.
It's gonna be there for a lot of years.
So I know that hopefully, you know, as you all probably know, the Tier 2 grant was approved. We haven't heard, you know, the final on that, how much we're going to get out of it. What we'd asked for, I believe it was 1.5 million of this month, the money we're looking at. So, you know, where are we going to recoup the rest? I think that was what we were discussing earlier. So we have to look at our budget and see where we're at.
Rick, did you have an opinion as far as that $100,000 mod?
For,
as
which
far as
one
the
are you
Harbor
talking
Commission?
about, for the Crossway or for the power on Whiskey?
The Crossway.
It's 68,000.
Yeah, it's $68,200.
And, you know, aesthetically, it'll look a lot better. Stepping away from Ports and Harbor and talking more about working for a charter company, I think it will make up its cost quicker than the $5,000 for the 2 slips. Just because Kyle will be able to put, I mean, right now, the bow pickers, he wraps them 6 or 7 deep in there. They'll go to 3, but there are other spots for the bow pickers to go. The charter companies will, I think, enjoy it more if there's not so many bow pickers there, if it makes any sense there. Ports and harbors wise, I mean, a prettier harbor always looks better. So I don't know, I think it's a wash. We did recommend, this was before we had money from the Ports and Harbor, before we knew how much more it would cost. We did recommend to change it back to what I think your estimate is. We did not know how much that would cost them. Yeah. And that was, yeah, he's right. There was part of the original design was the way to keep the walkway where this estimate is, but they were going to put fingers on it. That was kind of, that wouldn't have worked very well for what it is. So. This is kind of like a better option of the 3.
So, Ports and Harbor Commission is in favor of it?
Correct. Before, of the realignment, but we did not know at the time how much it would cost.
I think one of the comments I'd like to make on that is that even though we're going to lose some of the turn base in there, we can still stack an awful lot of bow pickers in there, being creative and stuff. So we're probably only gonna lose maybe 6 across there. We can still stack a whole bunch in there.
So you're still gonna be able to accommodate everybody, is what you're saying, right?
That is correct. That is correct. Yeah, all we're gaining out is just the 2 annual bursts out of that as well. So it helps our customers that are here year-round, but it also accommodates those that come in, the bow pickers and stuff that come in during the summertime. So we're trying to, this is kind of a happy medium between the two. So, and we're trying to do is make it, it's another safety issue as well, because right now we're going to put, when we do this, we're also going to put railing on both sides during the wintertime. So that walkway is going to be safer.
Peter, is you?
Okay.
Any more questions, comments? Very good. So, Amy, what happens, we brought it up under new business, is this, what needs to happen to get it to the point where we can award the contract?
Bellingham? This harbor phase?
Yeah.
We need the money.
Say again?
We need the money.
That's what John said.
So Kyle, I'm going to defer to your next steps.
Well, I kind of hope that when Dave Pinkett gets back off his fishing trip, that we can sit down with Dave and figure out how we're going to, do this funding, so we can present it at the next meeting and say, okay, here's the money we've got, and here's our proposal on how we can do the rest, how we can pay for the rest of it. So, I'm kind of at a loss there because, like I said, I didn't have a chance to even scramble to see where we were at with funding today. But I think we're going to, looking ahead, I think we're, the concern we've got is we've got to get this completed, because if we don't, the prices are just going to continue going up. So I'm going to have to defer to Dave and have him help me, figure out how we're going to get the money put in that checkbook.
Well, it'd be nice to get this, it sounds like we're like 95% certain we're going to get that Tier 2 grant, and it needs to be spent this year, so it'd be nice to not have to do another piecemeal, get this whole phase 3 done.
That's correct, and so, I guess now that we know what it's going to cost us, now that we have we know a 95% chance that we're going to get the money that we got off the Tier 2 grant, so now we can figure out what we can do and actually have something to present next council meeting, so we can get this off the ground and get going.
And how much is that Tier 2 grant? I'm sorry, I just was not doing.
Well, I think it was approximately $1.5 million.
I think it was like a 4-to-1 grant, so the state was going to fund 25% of it. That's why we always got ours awarded.
So, Monty, if you'd like to just write the check for it, I'd be glad.
But if it's, what was Bellingham's, don't they have a date in which they need to get something going to get it done this year?
We have approximately, don't quote me on it, I believe we have about 90 days before they have to start doing something, because they gotta put the construction for the floats and get the pile driver in here. If everything goes right, we plan on starting this in October of this year, where we can go in this winter and start working on the pulling the old pilings out and actually doing golf and hotel as we go through and start this winter.
So we could figure out the financing by a regular meeting of June. We still are able to get the bind with Bellingham?
No, we'll be fine.
Very good. Hey, this next one involves you too, Kyle.
Let me get my other notes.
And I don't know, Andy, did we get any answers from Holly about?
We haven't received a response yet as to whether or not we can designate funds. However, again, the railroad has been incredibly helpful with this, so I'll let Kyle speak to it.
We weren't able to get the exact billing and pricing from the railroad, but they did point us to a website that had the actual documentation to show the charges and stuff that they're doing this year. And the agreement that we had when we were discussing with the railroad and all the group down there at the harbor, I mean at the Long Dock, was that we would, because of the changeover and stuff this year, that we would work off of the charges or the billing that the railroad had set for this year. So in other words, rather than trying to change anything during this fishing season, we would go with their billing prices. And I believe it was like 3.5 cents a pound for the actual fish coming across the dock. And the wharfage rate is still like, charging for like minimal docking charges and stuff, which is on additional to that. The parking down there, which is additional to that. So it's actually, I haven't set it up, all the way through, but looking at it, we've got a pretty good pattern to go with. So we're not starting with scratch.
What's it about that website? You have that by hand?
It's a big, long link.
Yeah, it's like this long.
Okay, all right.
But if you have it, you could email it to Monty. That might be that way you just click on it, because I remember.
Yeah, if you could, yes, send it
for
collect to you at all.
For a price, yes,
and we can look at it.
I'll be glad to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, so that website actually has their docking fees on there.
It's got the docking fees, docking charges, vehicle permit, wharfage, vessel weights. I mean, it's very, very in depth. So we have a good guideline to go by. So it'll be pretty simple, or not simple, but it'll be pretty easy to come through. So and we already have, from Whittier Seafood side of it, we already have a list of all their vessels that they're going to be utilizing this year. Plus also, if we allow them to use the ocean dock as well, we can also reverse some of these charges back over there and start getting funding off of it.
Okay.
It's very good that you have such a great relationship with the railroad at this point, in order to, so, I just commend you. Management.
Pure luck.
Thank you,
Great.
Scott.
Mr. Mayor, actually, can I ask something?
Yes.
When you're talking about using the ocean dock to reverse charges, what exactly were you meaning by that?
What we're doing is an overflow on Whittier Seafood. If they need an overflow area where they can unload. We've had it tied up for 3 years now with no revenue off of it. So we're trying to give them an opportunity to show us that they can actually do something on there. We're also having some, we're making sure that the guidelines are down so we don't interfere with our visitors, with anything that's going on in that triangle. That is one of the things that Annie and I both have set down some pretty, strict guidelines on. No interference with the foot traffic, no interference with the with vehicle traffic. So our intent is to see what's going to happen, but allow them to show us they can actually produce off of that. Another thing that they're looking at is a show place, so that people can actually, we're going to try to put a cordoned area off of there where people can actually watch them unload fish or whatever they would like to in a safe environment. So, I mean, it's a pretty ambitious, but,
People like to see that, actually. They don't want to say, get off the dock.
Peter?
Wasn't Inlet Seafood also interested in that dock as an overflow option?
They are interested in it, and we're not trying to just, say, you can't have it.
So what do we say?
So if I may speak to that,
Go ahead.
sorry, I am very interested in receiving something like a business plan from Whittier Seafood before we make any decisions on how we're going to be using the ocean dock. I'm not interested at this point in granting exclusive use rights to any one particular entity. However, having said that, I think the city, it would be in the city's best interest to be open if there's a business plan in place that would safeguard our current interests and maybe grow some business as well. And at this point, I haven't seen, I punted over a bunch of questions that I want answers to before we continue the conversation. Again, safeguarding the area, safeguarding, I guess, inclusive business interests.
And do we have an agreement with some sightsee boat to moor there every now and again?
We do, and we have a schedule, and they're coming in on the 25th, according to the captain today when he called me. So we're already aware of that, and we're also looking at workaround of that as well. So we're trying to take that into consideration. That is a guarantee as well.
Okay, so, and that vessel, are they loading and unloading passengers in Whittier?
They are, yes.
And is it appropriate to be having a mixed-use industrial dock with a recreational use at the same time?
Well, your call. I mean,
Well,
right now,
we're talking about a fish processing display. I'm aware of the equipment that it requires to work these tenders when they hit the dock at the same time. There seem to be a couple variables here that need to be dialed in. Who's the priority? Is it the fishing people? Is it the sightsee boat? If we've already made an arrangement with the sightsee boat,
for the
it's
priority,
done.
there are two priorities there. Besides,
And the Klondike.
That's correct. That's what I was getting at. We have those priorities right now, Peter, and we're definitely looking at. That's why we're not jumping the gun on anything. We're just looking at options for this. What we're trying to do is get something that's paying for itself and being utilized. That's all I'm looking at. So I'm not trying to throw anything out. I'm trying to look at this from a logical standpoint, not just say, wow, this is neat. I'm going to get some money from these people. That's not the idea.
One of the problems that my understanding of Inlet Seafood is that they need to bring in a big 18-wheeler. And 18-wheelers just don't fit in that area. The smaller form factor trucks can negotiate the entire triangle without changing any traffic pattern. So the 18-wheelers are just, we tried to get something to work for the last 3 years. Nothing ever happened, but it was just, logistically, I never could figure out how they were going to deal with the 18-wheelers and that. It was never It's never laid out for that big of a truck.
And when there's a storm, that's unusable.
Absolutely, and I want you all to know that we have sat down and made it very, very clear that the Klondike Express, if there's a storm, that's the major priority. That's number one. And so they already know that. Everyone knows that we've talked to.
Safety title. Next, new business council approval for the rental of city-owned condos to Reader's Seafood LLC.
So I can speak to that. I was approached by Kathy, who I believe is here in the audience. Whittier Seafood is interested in renting all city spaces, our condos in BTI. And so I told her I didn't have the power or authority to move on that. So it needed to go through council discussion. Because my understanding from several months ago is that the council was interested in selling the units. So we would need to clean them out and have them appraised and then put them up on the market. However, I'm also unsure whether or not council would like to rent out those units as we go through the process of selling them. This is where I need council discussion and approval moving forward.
The idea is to eventually sell them, right? But now you would like to perhaps make some additional revenue off rental?
My understanding was that council had wanted to get out of basically the housing market is the term that comes to mind. And
right.
You guys wanted to sell the condos. However, they still need to be cleaned and appraised, and Kathy did put it out there that they have staff that can help us get those units up and running. But again, I don't know, do we want to say yes, well, we're willing to rent them for 1 year? Do we just not want to rent at all? Do we, I don't know.
I don't know about for a year, but possibly this season, I mean, up through September. I mean, that's about the time frame that the P12 is going to be put up for auction.
I don't see us getting them on the market by any time this summer. And my only concern would be if we're going into the rental business, do we have an appropriate pro forma contract to be landlords?
Right now, we don't. It would have to be something that's developed just like putting them on the market, and we're short-staffed. So either road we take, it's going to be work on our part. It needs to be done either way. So I just need to know which direction.
We can get them ready to rent a lot faster than we could get them ready to sell.
I believe so, because Whittier Seafood would be willing to loan a hand in preparing the units for rental. However, we would need to make sure that there is good contractual language in the leases to safeguard the city's interests.
I would like to see the apartments prepared to be sold. I feel like we have enough on our hands and then become landlord to add additional burden to our city staff administration.
And it also, it's kind of interfere with the traditional marketplace.
I've already been contacted by business owners sharing their market rates in case we decide to move in that direction, so that we wouldn't damage.
Negatively
Right. So I already have that information in case you guys decide to go that way.
And I do believe demand exceeds supply going into the summer for living space. If renting the condos did not interfere with the process of putting them up for sale, generating some income for the summertime, is this a summertime thing, Kathy, or?
It is a summertime thing. Back in March, Tory Wing had made a comment that he was interested in the units that the city owned in the BTI. As it stands now, he is not in the market for purchasing any more. We do, however, have a need for rent. And it would be a summer thing, most likely no later than the end of September.
I don't see, you know, why not? As long as the condos are still in saleable condition at the end of the rental period.
I would agree with that, only because it allows us to get past the incredibly busy summer season, and then once things start slowing down as we head into winter, we can then go ahead and do the appraisals and get them on the market. And that's just my gut, but.
And just, and getting into the landlord business, it very often goes pretty casually here, but you do want to have you want to have an inspection pre and post, and make security arrangements accordingly.
How many apartments do we have?
Kathy, did you have?
I do. I would like to make a comment that the city offices on the first floor that are connected all the way through need work. There is a bathroom that hole in the ceiling. They need those first floor units need work.
That isn't really designed for living space.
And you are correct about that. You are correct. The ones that I am truly interested in are further up the building.
How do they look?
Much better. Much better.
They have kitchens.
They do. They have kitchens and they also have furnishings.
How many are there?
There are two actually that we are interested in.
We're getting one out.
We have 4, right? That's 5.
How many?
The interim police chief is not staying in one of the apartments. I believe we have 301, I think 707, which I wasn't aware of, 1509, 1507, and then the first floor spaces as well.
So we have 4.
301's the old clinic, isn't it?
It is.
Well, that seems like that would be the most workable of all.
And that one isn't bad. I don't recall if there was a stove still in there, but that one is not in bad shape and would be workable. The public safety office, kind of iffy, but the ones on the 15th floor kept my interest.
So, I have no problems with leasing them at a competitive rate, the ones that are useful.
We would be more than willing to carry renter's insurance if that is also a concern.
If I have direction to go ahead and proceed at least with a conversation, I can go ahead and, again, always safeguarding the city's interest, go ahead and have a conversation with Kathy and see which spaces are a priority and what work needs to go into them and how quickly we can get them in a rentable situation, and then go ahead and figure out the contractual language for entering into a lease, the lease terms, and we can go ahead, or I can go ahead and report back next month as to, but I'm not going to move until I know it's okay.
Mr. Mayor, I have a procedural question here. So we have an issue the city manager is actually looking for direction here. Usually these issues come up and it's the council that's trying to offer direction, whether the city manager wants it or not. It has been that way in the past anyway. Anyway, what is procedure here to direct the city manager? We've been, with the lawyers so involved in the meetings here, I have been told I cannot make a motion to direct the city manager in an open meeting. I'd just like to establish what procedure is. I mean, I think there's, if we're down the road here, what's process? Is it a straw poll and we go? And remember, we were told numerous times that we would have these conversations in a council meeting. We would all look at each other and nod and go, that's a great idea. And the city manager came to us and said, well, I didn't get any specific direction.
Okay, this is.
No, I know you're not in, but this is a systemic thing. And it needs to transcend individuals.
Okay, this is an item on our agenda, and I think it's appropriate that the city manager is asking for consensus from council. So I would ask for a vote.
Do we not need to make a motion to direct?
Okay, motion to direct. I'd ask for a motion.
Before we do, Shane, can I ask a question? Would we not post this out to everybody if we were going to rent out the apartments and offer them?
Yeah, procurement.
I can look into that. I simply don't have the answer, but we may need to post. You are correct in that. So this would be direction to,
To rent them out.
okay, sorry.
I'll just jump in here. I think what you can do is direct the city manager to research the issue and provide options. And you can direct her to consider 2 or 3 options or just one option. Then the city manager can consult with legal counsel as to what the proper procedure is for leasing city-owned space, and come up with a draft contract, and figure out the details, and then city manager can come back to council with a recommendation and either say, here's your 2 options, or here's, and this is the option I recommend, or can say, here's the one option you told me to research, and here's my recommendation. And I think that's the idea here, and we're just kind of like to bring up the operations manual that Holly's been working on. Those are the kinds of questions that I think we're hoping to get into the operations manual, and that will make things run a little bit smoother.
I have a question for Kathy. How quickly are you guys looking to rent?
Yesterday.
Okay, that's what I thought. So if I can go, I can research, I can find what the rules are, would council be amenable to holding a special meeting just on this topic so that we can go ahead and not lose an opportunity? And it wouldn't be a long, drawn-out meeting. It would very specifically be for this.
I'd like to make a motion to direct the city manager to research procedures. I believe there is this will be handled in our code book somewhere, but to research rental procedures, for lack of a better term, and request a special meeting should temporal issues manifest.
What I can do is try to research the rest of this week and see if I can quickly arrive at options, and maybe as soon as next week call. I'll of course send out an email. We can take a vote as to the date, perhaps, or I'm not sure how to code that. We need to call a special.
Don't you notice a special meeting in the same way that you would notice a regular meeting 24 hours in advance, and you know. Right, so figure out what time. I think
I could do a doodle poll. I could list the dates on the upcoming week, and you guys can choose which day in the week best suits you.
But, I mean, right now, Tuesdays work, do Tuesdays work?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah. Monday or Tuesday works for me.
Here.
one more question about the posting it for, I guess, when you are researching, if we need to post it. Like,
Right, there will be timeframes for that. But even prior to getting to that point, I think I need to present to city council what I found. So that would be step one.
And we gotta find out if we can even do it.
Right.
Give you permission to post a date for the public.
Do we have a second on that motion?
To post a meeting?
I believe Peter said to direct the city manager to research the procedures for renting city spaces and then to call a special meeting, is what I captured.
True.
Second.
Calling for a vote. Peter Dunmore,
Yes.
Monty Irvin,
Yes.
Victor Shen,
No.
Deborah Hicks,
yes.
Dave Dixon, Dan Meyer.
Yes. Next item of new business is Army Corps of Engineers request for additional funding regarding the Head of the Bay project.
I can speak to this one as well, and it was my understanding that 2 Army Corps of Engineer staff people would be here, Bruce Saxauer, who's the chief of the Civil Works Branch, and Lori Scalise, who's the lead program analyst, and they are not here. I received a phone call and then a letter from Kim Townsend, who's the current project manager for the Head of the Bay, and requesting additional matching funds. I have the letter. I thought that they would be here, so I didn't print it out. I apologize. But basically, the long and short of it is that the way the program is set up, if the federal government puts in $100, the city of Whittier needs to put in $100. Right now, they're claiming that they have put slightly over $1 million, and the city of Whittier has only put in $944,988. I don't want to get too into it because, again, I think it merits their explanation as to why they need more money. I see confused looks. I'm confused myself. I was looking forward to the information. So perhaps this is something that can be tabled for next month when they can show up and explain why they want more money.
And can we get like a itemized receipt, if you will?
I can go ahead and forward the letter to council that was sent to me, the request. I can do that as soon as this meeting's over.
And as an agenda management issue, this is in as new business, to carry into the next meeting as unfinished business? Thank you, Walter.
Council discussion.
Well, regardless if Mark has told anybody in the gloom stories about the Army Corps of Engineers, I advise you to just forget them, you know, and deal with these people that present themselves. Because it's a major thing. It's like the biggest thing for South Central Alaska that I can think of. What's that, Peyton?
I think it's getting more and more important. Trying to do more things with less land. And we're becoming more popular. Do we have any council discussion? I remember one other item that I left out of my mayor's report. I met with the, actually, I was at a Whittier Manor board meeting for a parking problem, and they asked about ideas on how they might proceed with the expiration of their lease, which I guess is going to expire in a little over a year. And one idea that came to mind was something similar to how we were able to make progress with the DeLong dock, in that we essentially wrote down some essential terms and conditions. And I thought that might be a safer avenue for them. I have concerns. Basically, the railroad is telling them that they can't offer that land to them because it's tied up, will eventually be tied up in the master lease. And I have concerns. The whole idea of maybe doing essential terms and conditions is to make the parties have a good idea of what their expectations are. As in, if the city agrees to release that property from the master lease, then it will indeed be offered for sale. Peter?
Your mistake for going to a manor board meeting. They have been sitting on a proposed lease from the city of Whittier for almost 2 years now. They have insisted on negotiating directly with the railroad over this time. And for them to bring it to you for ideas, I'm sorry, is silly. They have our proposal. We spent a long time creating that lease to best protect the Whittier Manor from the long arm of the railroad as it pertained to hazardous material, soil contamination that they could use to override whatever lease was in play. And I have personally discussed with the Whittier Manor board members that their safest play is to let the city take over that lease and continue to lease it to them. It represented no change in price for them and significantly better security, and they still haven't learned that the railroad is trying to take that building away from them. So, and I'll be happy to talk to any of the Whittier Manor board people again about this very thing.
That's it for me.
The ball is in their court.
I told them that. Okay, so moving on to citizens' discussion. Don?
Yeah, Kyle, do we have any longevity projections for that DeLong dock from an engineering firm?
30 seconds and 30 feet.
Yeah.
No, at this point, no, we do not. We had, the only thing we did was we hired a person to take a look at it last year, see what the structural soundness of it was, and at the time, that person told us that it was probably good for at least another 5 years.
What is the city's liability in 5 years or in 6 years when part of that dock comes down? All those pilings comes through the deck. I mean, is the city taking total ownership and total responsibility for it?
Yes.
Okay.
Kyle, was that the report you got from Shannon Tolman, or is that someone else?
Yeah, it was Shannon.
I thought it was more like 15 years.
It was. I was just being facetious, but it was 15 years. So he felt it was very sound at the time. So, you know.
One of the things he did is at low tide, he took an instrument that measures steel thickness. Essentially, it is a steel barge mounted on a bunch of steel pipes. It's not a technical marvel, okay? It's pretty simple. And its biggest danger is lack of maintain electrolysis. The prevention of electrolysis. That's its biggest liability. And with the exception of like 2 pilings, the wall thickness was good enough he thought it would last for another 15. Kyle?
Yeah, one other thing is that Shannon found out that they had put anodes on there to prevent, finally, the electrolysis that was 2 years ago they did this. So we haven't looked at it this year.
There should be an electrolysis system for that. It was stopped after the Army stopped using it.
There was. There was a perfectly good one, and I think the railroad ripped it off.
Oh,
I don't know how it happened, but when there was an upgrade to convert it from its use prior to when the railroad took it over, you know, I mean, I think it was primarily used to pump fuel oil to the head of the bay.
Yeah.
And so when they converted it to that, which I think was around the year 2000, that at some point in time, it was a more sophisticated than just putting anodes on it. It was anyway, that was damaged.
It was probably a degalazine system, electronic degalazine system on it, right? You know, that's generally how the military does things.
Well, that was part of their upgrade that they did when they put the new fuel lines in, and now that dock, the deck of that dock at the oil spill in 1989, you couldn't move any vehicle out of the center roadway. And they didn't do anything other than concrete the top of that. And just an FYI. So I don't know what the deck thickness is on that deck underneath there. Because we had to bring steel plates in. We had to bring in steel plates to lay down so that they could, during the oil spill, so they could just run a boom truck out there, pick stuff off the boat at that time. And so the Army came in after that and, you know, raised the bull rails and decked it over that concrete, that 6 inches of concrete that's there. And then they put that anode system in and that fire suppression system in, and the new pipeline out to the bridge out here anyway. During that phase. But that deck was iffy then. That was wild. Pilings are one thing, it's the deck is large. I'd be worried about it.
When they made the inspection, there's some access hatches, and when they access hatches to the barge, and they made entry, and they said it looked relatively clean. As far as the upper part that you're talking about, they didn't mention good, bad, or indifferent. Or I didn't hear that part.
There wasn't an engineering study done on that. Probably should have been, but there wasn't. We spent a lot of money on a lot of things. This is a very important thing that kind of got missed, but 15 years, maybe 30, maybe 5.
Okay, all right. Greg, did you have a citizen's comment?
Yeah, so Laura Port Harbor, come up to the microphone.
More reports in Harbor, or Port and Harbor. 3 or half of your new business basically involves Port and Harbor. Between the Long Dock, the RV Corps engineer head of the bay, and the BMI quote for you, Harbor. I think it warrants enough for me to call a special meeting before your next meeting, just to kind of give our options, go through some things. So I think between Kyle and Annie and these things have come up, if they can get some info to me, that way we can get a meeting together and kind of do our recommendations on some of these, because it's pretty major stuff. I mean, you're talking $5 million for the new harbor rebuild, the long dock. Some things have been brought up, whether maintenance, things like that. There's a lot of money being involved. I think Portland Harbor should be involved and send recommendations to you as well. So I just wanted to say that's, it's something that I'm going to pursue here before your next meeting in June.
That sounds great, Greg. If we can get any additional information from the Corps, we'll try and keep you, you'll know what we know.
Yeah. And it sounds like this, those two with the BMI and stuff, it was last minute, so that's why there was nothing in the package and like that. So, but just to keep, with Kyle, I know I'm gonna have a meeting with Kyle here. He doesn't know yet, but we should meet and just kind of get caught up on things so I can keep Port Harbor involved as well. That's my goal, is to keep Port Harbor involved. There's a lot going on here, so.
Well, this town has had a lot on its plate in the last few years. This building, there's just been a lot of stuff going on. So it's funny, it doesn't seem like the community is that much more interested. They've got a rent $8 million building here, so there's just a handful of people that came to the meeting. It's just a function of how government works. So, about the life of the long dog. The more involved, the better. We get right to the point of something gets done, and then issues come up that are like, why wasn't this done like 6 months ago? That type of thing. And it's a function of the community, the government, and I guess management as well. How many city managers we go through?
Well, our goal as a commission is, we're supposed to send recommendations to you. We're supposed to be a group for the harbor master can speak to and bring recommendations to you as well. That hasn't been like that in the past. We're trying to change that. I think the commission members are all on board with me. Because there's, you shouldn't come to a meeting as you guys and not have the correct maps for zoning or certain things like that. As a commission, that's what our job is to do, is to bring the correct things to you so you're informed to make decisions on your own. And that's kind of our goal, I think, going forward, is that way you're not blindsided by one map and somebody else has a different map, or you're not blindsided by a certain number here and somebody else has a different number there. We want to make sure you have everything on the table so you can make a decision that benefits the city in the end. And that's where we're trying to go that way as a commission.
Question and procedure, as issues and items come up regarding harbor, port, and uplands infrastructure that is sent to the council, do we have a mechanism that also goes to all the ports and harbor members automatically? They should be on the same, they're the second the second or first set of eyes for the council on these issues.
I'd have to check the code, but I don't think there's any automatic provision that sends this.
Okay, that's great. This isn't a legal issue. This should be a matter of policy, that these guys just don't get this automatically. This is the stuff we've got to start thinking about. Ports and Harbor has been non-functional ever since the development of our Harbor Development Committee, which has turned out to a committee of one, and these guys are left out of the game. And my point, this just needs, if it's coming to the council, it should go to those guys. This should be a function of administrative policy, and it's a commonsensical thing.
Those are the things, just to speak to that from the administration side, there are so many areas where procedures are not in place and haven't been in place, but as we're rolling, we're trying, I mean, Greg knows that as much as we can, as things come up, we immediately contact him and bring him into the fold. So it is relationship building, it is bridge building, it is making sure that we are bringing people. And I think kudos to my staff, because we do try to bring in relevant commissions and parties that need to be part of the conversation before it hits here. So I just want to say we're working on.
And I get it, but the volunteer nature of a second-class city form of government hinges on the motivation and input of the volunteers, and they should be brought in at every possible opportunity. Anyway, this is my entire point. Please.
Yeah, and we've done that. I mean, I'm new to the board of Harvard as chair. Annie, like I said, I've been in a couple of meetings now. She's welcomed me in. Kyle's welcomed me in. So the communication is, it has not been there in the past. It is starting to open up. We're still new to this, but it's getting there. And you know, it's not going to go right away. But the communication is there. I appreciate it with the city staff, and then I just forward on to where it is. And, you know, the commission, and we're trying to keep, you know, a lot of stuff is, we got to do it now. BMI has, you know, they have an end date before, if they want to do it this year, they have to have recommendations, or they have to have your stuff by a certain date. So it's, you know, there's some stuff we might not get to, but we're trying to get there. We're trying to get out of it. So, and I'm more than happy to have a special meeting as long as we get a quorum of people. I don't know, you know, they chose to be on the commission, they could do a job. So. If not, they can step away and find somebody that will.
Can they appear telephonically?
Yeah. Yeah, and we have all our meetings up here, so we can, it's basically just like, again, it's the same thing. Mainly we can set it all up and do the exact same thing.
The more experts, the better there are that volunteer to try to run this town.
Thank you, Greg. Any more citizens discussion? Mr. Goldstein.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to thank the council once again for bringing something that periodically falls to the bottom of the list of things to do. Thank you for raising that to the top. This policies and procedures issue that I know Councilor Denmark has been harping on for many years, probably over a decade, is very important. It's very refreshing to hear the administration back that, and I get the sense that the council backs that too. That's critical. Ordinances are the basic guidelines, the policies and procedures give you direction on how to get that stuff done. Speaking of policies and procedures and ordinances, reminded me of an old ordinance that considerable amount of time was spent years ago. It was the nuisance ordinance. We had that go through the Planning Commission. At the time, I think it was the Planning and Zoning Commission. It went through legal purview. It went before the council. There was a lot of discussion on that, and it was passed. This was one of those ordinances that has fallen to the bottom of the list, and my best guess is that it still remains there. This ordinance covered things like old boats that haven't moved and probably never will, vehicles and trucks that are sitting on lots that are rusting and are not being used at all. The argument of one man's treasure is another man's junk was the old argument, but I think any reasonable individual would make the assumption that some of these pieces of machinery will never run again. We've got a vacant lot over there off to the northwest of Vegas Towers on Glacier, right around Glacier and Kenai. And in my view, that's another nuisance now. That was a project that basically created an eyesore. Speaking of eyesores, we've got the city boneyard, where there's a lot of equipment there that just sits there and rusts. And there's no reason for that to be there. At least some of the equipment. I do understand the need to keep some storage materials there, some machinery there, but it really looks like a junk pile. We've also got animal fecal matter
take a walk over here in the springtime through some of the sidewalks over here, try to stay off the street, and you almost have to play hopscotch trying to get around some of the droppings that are there. Our nuisance ordinance calls for people to pick that stuff up. It calls for people to have their dogs on leashes. I can't tell you how many animals, dogs I've seen here off leash. And finally, in the nuisance abatement ordinance, there is a position that was created. It was the nuisance abatement officer. And I know that's not probably the most popular job here, but I can tell you this, that one of our esteemed counselors here actually held that position, and I think did very well for the short time that he was involved in that, or that person was involved. I don't want to say it was he or she. But I would encourage the city to review that and come up either with a nuisance abatement officer or task the Whittier Police Department with something like that. I know that was a discussion that we had years ago, and there was some resistance to that, but we really need to tackle this stuff. Preferably, the nuisance abatement officer will be somebody who doesn't live in town here and have to suffer the consequences of some of the decisions that they'll make. Thank you very much.
Mr. Goldstein, that lot that you were talking about on the north side of the baggage tower, I think that was a use it or lose it kind of a situation, and that's why that was done. I'm not positive. I should be, but I'm not. But Mark did that because the previous administration kind of wanted that to go to the railroad instead of the town. And so Mark decided that he'd use it. No, it's not Mark.
And once again, it's a project that is just kind of half completed and just sits there. I would hope that the city does something to beautify that area or use it in some other fashion.
Right.
Park something on it, since it's a parking lot.
Put a couple of tennis courts up.
But it's better than not having it. Do you think? Or maybe
I think it was better not having that there. I know that the council, I think there were 4 or 5 councilors who this went before and they approved it. But unfortunately, the people who have to look at that, who live on the north side of Baggage Towers, weren't consulted. So it just went ahead and was denuded, this whole big area over there, and it's just an eyesore today.
I think it's from the mud wrestling tournament stay
That's
over 4th of July.
Well,
any more citizens comment? Kathy?
First of all, I would like to thank the council's consideration for the new business item, new business item B. Beyond that, I apologize to Annie. I wasn't able to meet with you before this today. Whittier Seafood would like to invite council and community for an open house. We, as you all know, we are making, well, maybe you don't know, we are making improvements to the plant on Whittier Street across the building, and we want to show it off. And we invite you all to come down. I believe the date that I have chosen is either going to be the 30th or the 31st of next week. I know it's short notice. Believe me, I know it's short notice. But I would hope that I could see all of you there. Thank you. Unfortunately, we probably won't have any fish to demonstrate some of our machines. Sorry.
Leave a fan in the gut room.
Ed, did you have?
Good evening, my name is Ted Spencer. I work on the museum across the street and have been for the last 15 years. And one of my ambitions is to gild the community with its heritage. It has a superb pioneer heritage that's a mixture of both civilian and military activity. And I must say that when I came here, I was loath to find anyone that seemed to know much about the history of Whittier. There's a lot of folklore, and there's people that are still convinced that the Buckley building was built during World War II. And in the course of building the museum, I have ferreted out a considerable amount of history by contacting pioneers and veterans, and they've been kind enough to contribute their memories, their photos, their artifacts, and I use it to fashion the museum. Currently, according to TripAdvisor, we're number 3 attraction in the community behind the tunnel, which everyone has to go through, and the harbor, which everybody can see. So I feel proud of the effort to capture this history and create a visitor attraction for people that might find themselves here waiting for a ferry or trapped by the rain or whatever motivates them to visit the museum. We actually get people that visit the museum that tell me that they came just to see the museum. So we're gaining some notoriety in the state for the quality of our program. It's small, it's modest. We'll probably never be much more than that unless we get a bigger place. The reason I'm here tonight is I have a couple of projects that I've been working on for a long period of time, and I'm trying to bring them to bay. The first one is the creation of an earthquake monument that notes the events of March 27, 1964, when a major earthquake hit this region. Whittier was the closest community to the epicenter of the earthquake. The buildings were, because of their substantial construction, suffered little damage, but it caused the subterranean soils of the canal to collapse, which brought 3 tsunamis to the community at close range, the second one being recorded at 104 feet. It took out the rail yards, it wiped out Whittier's lumber industry, road access. It didn't apparently do much to the tunnel. It also took 13 lives, 6 of whom were children, attending a birthday party for their father in the cruise quarters over at the lumber mill. And I think that when I go around the communities of South Central Alaska, I see monuments and dedications throughout the region to the earthquake. For people that weren't in the earthquake, it doesn't mean a heck of a lot, but for us that did go through it, it was a significant event that should be remembered. And Whittier is the only town that I've seen that doesn't have something up about it, other than the exhibit that we have in the museum. So I've been working with Mr. Corby. He was able to secure a large rock that fell off the mountain and was in the hands of the railroad, and they conveyed it to the city, and it's in storage over by behind the basketball court. And I created a plaque, a bronze plaque, which I've gone ahead and had created without a whole lot of authorization. I want to see it done, and I'm willing to bear whatever cost and criticism it may invoke by creating it. Now I need permission to install it, and I'm looking at attaching this bronze plaque. It's a rather large plaque with a dissertation about the earthquake in Whittier. Onto this stone. This stone is about 12 feet high, and I don't know how many tons it weighs. Perhaps Skype can tell me. He knows how to calculate those things. But I need one, permission to install it on city-owned property. The vision that I have is to put it over in the triangle where the old gazebo used to be, because there's a nice little patch of wild roses growing there, and it would accent the monument really well. And it's also a main traffic area for visitors that come to the community, and they'd all be exposed to it. I think that it would serve double duty to place a tsunami warning sign next to it so that people would actually reflect on that tsunami warning. I think warning signs people kind of ignore unless they're unusual. So that's the first project that I'm seeking your permission to proceed with. As for the cost, the museum has contracted for the plaque. We've used museum money to pay for half of it, and I have a grant in with Kenai Mountains, which they're going to review in June. They've been kind enough to extend consideration of our grant request in the post-construction of the actual job. So they turned me down, I'm going to eat all of it. We have to employ some sort of a stone crafter that can create a recess in the rock to attach this plaque. I don't want anybody walking off with it in the future. And that's pretty much the long and short of that project. The other one deals with a project that's been long-standing and is also just as important to me, and that's the railroad monument that was constructed in 1943 that was rescued by the railroad and the city and the Corps of Engineers all worked together to replicate the original monument and reattach the 1,200-pound granite stone that has the history of the town inscribed up at the, what's the street that runs?
Over by the walking tunnel.
Yeah, across the street from the walking tunnel. We're closing in on finishing the presentation of it with paving and poles, flag poles, and other amenities. I'm not sure what all is planned, probably benches and stuff. And at one point they were talking about a pavilion. I don't want to do a pavilion as an aside because you have this beautiful landscape out there and the pavilion obstructs the view, the back setting of this monument. This monument will be a great opportunity for the community of Whittier in the dedication process. And the vision that I have is to invite, as part of the dedication ceremonies, the congressional delegation, state legislative leadership, railroad, military, corporate entities such as the big outfits here in Whittier like Linden and Princess, and pioneers and whatnot, and have a ceremony. I've talked with the public affairs at J-Bear, and they're offering a color guard and a band, and I also have contacts with people in the military history world that are connected with the Alaska Cavalry, and they have a big flotilla of restored World War II vehicles that would, I'm going to try to convince them to make a pilgrimage to Whittier, and possibly a World War II aircraft flyby. And the reason for creating this ceremony and doing the staging and whatnot and inviting everybody involved is to, one, have a nice commemorative for this monument. It's probably one of the few, if the only, World War II monument in Alaska that was created during the war, and it's very unique. It's kind of like the Rosetta Stone for Whittier's history. It recounts the course of events over a long period of time as to what brought Whittier there. But I want to, one, get these substantial leaders in this community. I think it would be a good opportunity for the community leadership to talk to them about some of the needs. I feel that the U.S. government is poised to spend $1 trillion on infrastructure, and I really feel that Whittier should get a piece of that action. And if these community or congressional leaders, for instance, come here as part of the ceremony and we can host them, that it would open a dialogue. It's always a good idea to get these people here. The second reason is to pay honor to the pioneers and veterans that built this community. A lot of people are unaware of the effort here. And final thing is to attract a lot of media that creates a positive image for Whittier. The end.
Thank you.
So, I don't know what action you can take to allow me to go forward with the installation of the earthquake. I could also use some assistance in creating this ceremony, tentatively scheduled for September 1.
Okay. I think, thank you, Ted.
You're welcome.
So, council administration response to citizens' comments.
Scotty?
Is there?
Mr. Mayor, point of order here. This item is not on the agenda. We have been reminded repeatedly by our legal counsel that if it's not on the agenda, we can't take action in the meeting. Repeatedly, we've been told this. If we want this as an open discussion, this has to be, once again, carried forward to unfinished business, or that's not even automatic. This is coming from citizens' conversation. There has to be a request to have it put on the agenda to take action.
That's what I was going to ask, is that we put the earthquake monument placement.
Ted, I've been shut down in these meetings for months over this very issue. We're not going to be able to do anything
I've attempted
today.
to get on the agenda numerous times. And been pushed out to where I'm here speaking.
So
from the
I just
citizens.
ask administration, please put the earthquake monument placement on the June regular meeting. All those in favor?
Now.
All those in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
We turn this off. Adjourn.
Hey, Ted?
Yeah.
Does this thing need its whole rock? I mean, why don't we just install the plaque on the railroad monument? It's already there. Or the old Alaskans monument down on the
I want
triangle.
it down where the event took place.
The old Alaskans monument is on the triangle right now.
To the other side of the track.
I get it, but there's already a monument there. Why wouldn't this plaque be added to an existing? Yeah, okay, well, this is the first time hearing about it, Ted, so I'm sorry. I apologize for...
Look, I've been
Yeah.